Cell phone data and DNA testing. Those are the highlights of the day today. This is day 24 of the Karen retrial, and we got into some of the physical evidence along with some of the forensics in regards to the cell phone and videos and DNA. Welcome to the Roundup, True Crime with Mike. Here I give you an update to current cases so you can quickly catch up on today's or this week's happenings on some public cases. Today started continuing the direct examination of Lieutenant Brian Tully. He is Michael Proctor's supervisor. He was the one that went out to the Albert house in the afternoon. One of the first things that Lally asked Tully was about search warrants. He asked him what is needed for a search warrant. Let's hear his answer.
Get it, sir.
Objection.
Jody, tell Timmy to be quiet. So I'm going to allow him to build a foundation here. So the objections are ruled.
As governed by the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Article 14 of the Massachusetts Constitution, law enforcement is required to get a search warrant if we're going to invade someone's privacy. In order to obtain a search warrant, I need to gather facts that I swear an oath and affirm that are true and accurate, that there is probable cause, which means more likely than not that a specific piece of evidence will be found in a specific location and it's related to a crime. So I need to check those boxes in order to obtain a search warrant through the trial court.
And what, if any, information did you have related to specific evidence of a crime in relation to the interior of the residence of 34 Fairview Road?
I didn't have any. When thinking about residence and search warrants and evidence, I need to put the evidence inside the house. And so I don't believe that Mr. O'Keefe entered the home. So I had no nexus to the house.
And what, if any, evidence did you have that Mr. O'Keefe had ever entered the home at 34 Fairview Road on January 29th or on any other day?
I don't. On the contrary, I have evidence that he was outside, but I don't have anything putting him inside the residence.
He said he has to have probable cause that a crime was committed, especially if it's a house. There was no evidence that John O'Keefe went into the house, so no reason for a warrant. Tully then talked about why he sent the car to the Canton Sallyport instead of the other facilities. Tully then went into the video evidence. Tully said that they got camera video from the library in the Temple Beth Abraham, which is on the way from the Waterfall Bar and Grill to 34 Fairview, or possibly John's house. So the first thing we see is at around 12:14, that library camera shows Karen's SUV heading north on Washington, and then the video of the temple showed the same SUV going north at around 12:18 or so. Then we see the same cameras after 5 a.m., and we see Karen's SUV first go south past the library, and then like 3 or 4 minutes later, we see her SUV go back north. We then see the temple video right after that, and she is headed in the same direction she was early in the morning. Lally then asked about cell phone records. If you want to hear a good discussion about cell phone records, listen to what he said. Tully explained that CSLI cell site listing information has the tower used, the time, and the antenna from which in the antenna. We know this kind of from Adnan's case where we know that it has an A, B, or C side. And then we hear about the difference in this case where Verizon was able to give the police engineering data on the phone, which gives a distance from the tower estimated on response times from the phone. So with these two pieces of information, you can create a much smaller arc on a geo-earth map, indicating where you think the phone might be. It can be then used to compare with the videos. Tully went into the cell phone that estimated Karen's phone was near the temple and at the time of the video, so they matched there. Unfortunately, direct exam ended there, and he did not go into any more depth after that. There was a call later that was further north on the highway. It was noticed that there was a 20-minute time from near the temple to Jen's house, which gave Karen time to go to the Fairview house. On cross, Jackson went into the search warrant. He said, while you may need a warrant, you can also ask. Tully said it's not normal to ask for phones for witnesses right away. Jackson went into what John was wearing, and since it was just a hoodie, he wanted to say that it would indicate that John went into the house. Later in the cross, Jackson went over the discrepancies in the evidence bag collected at the curb at the Albert's house. He said there were 5 pieces in the bag, but Tully only wrote down 3. Then he went into a version of the helicopter cell phone call, but this time it was the speed of light. Jackson asked about 2 arcs that Tully had created on direct about where the phone was at 5:19 a.m. And because the call record said 0.004 seconds, the speed to get to the arcs in that time was the speed of light. So the phone couldn't do that. Jackson also asked Tully about a Ford Edge parked on Fairview early in that morning. On redirect, Tully said that the account had problems with time and identification, so it didn't mean anything. Cross ended, and Sally had a simple redirect with asking if the pieces on the curb were his recollection of what he saw that afternoon, and he said yes. The rest of the focus on the day was on the DNA. It started with the officer who took swabs of Bechenek and Proctor, and then we heard from the first DNA analyst who worked at Bodie Industries. He was able to verify that the DNA found on the rear of the car matched John's. However, he couldn't do the hair, so the next lady did mitochondrial DNA testing, which is inherited from the mother. She gave the likelihood of the hair being a match to John's hair, and it was significant. Then we heard from Nicholas Bradford, who was a DNA analyst with the Massachusetts State Police. He said there were 3 contributed DNA profiles on certain items like the rear of the car, the glass, and on the taillight. He said John was one of the contributing DNA samples. He then went over the DNA on John's clothing and how many contributing profiles to the different swabs they had. Today was a much better day for the Commonwealth. The DNA matched hair and DNA on the car, and there was no cross by the defense on these 2 witnesses. Tully was much stronger against the cross, and he didn't have any bad text or anything pointed out. He knew what he was talking about with the cell phone evidence. Tully hinted that there was more data on the cell phone that will get more information that might indicate Karen went back to the Alberts house. We have trial tomorrow, and we'll see who gets on the stand. Thank you for listening to an episode of The Roundup. Be safe out there, and remember, don't do anything bad that will end up on one of my episodes.